What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday we had a massive announcement that is shaking up Sony as Jim Ryan is actually leaving Sony. Well, we did get the press release and we have some reasoning around it, but still a lot of questions with this situation, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a complete edition that we were expecting Sony to announce, but along with that, we had the announcement of a PC port for a big-time PlayStation 5 game, and Valve apparently woke up yesterday and decided to choose Chaos as they announced the sequel to what's pretty much the biggest game on Steam. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with a couple of Netflix announcements, specifically adaptations to animated series from different video game franchises. And we'll start with this one here, and that's Devil May Cry. That's right, an official announcement, a very quick teaser. I mean, seriously, it was maybe 10 seconds of footage from the series. The rest of it were like intro cards and credits and all that. But this will be with Adi Shankar involved, and they had talked about a while ago, I remember, wanting to do something with Devil May Cry. So this is very interesting. And then the other one is Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. Again, first look as they describe, and yeah, it's pretty much just that. It is a little longer than the Devil May Cry spot, but not by much. So they are just like coming soon, heading into 2024. And I think of the two, I'm most looking forward to Devil May Cry. It seemed like just in the very quick spot they had, the music was lined up perfectly with what you'd expect. And I think just the Devil May Cry aesthetic and setting, kind of the over-the-top nature lends really well to kind of the animation that they're targeting here. But either way, pretty exciting stuff to see how these two different franchises adapt to a series on Netflix, that being Devil May Cry and Tomb Raider. Also, we may have had a bit of a slip up the other day from Microsoft in an interview saying that Octopath Traveler 2 is indeed going into Game Pass. Well, this was part of an interview with Sarah Bond, and we can see this question here that was posed, where they ask, fans are fascinated that titles like a Dragon Guide and The Man Who Erased His Name and Octopath Traveler 2 will soon be a part of Xbox Game Pass. Now, there was no pushback necessarily, or correction from Sarah Bond, which has led people to believe, oh, okay, so Octopath Traveler 2, which was not announced with a Game Pass title card or anything, is going to the service next year in 2024 when it releases. Well, we did have an editor's note with an update attached to that interview saying, we've removed the mention of Octopath Traveler 2 coming to Xbox Game Pass, which was included in error. Octopath Traveler 2 will arrive on Xbox platforms in 2024. So I wouldn't be shocked if Octopath Traveler 2 did end up in Game Pass, and this was just kind of an accidental slip up of them basically telling us that early. Octopath Traveler 1 was in Game Pass. In fact, it feels like Xbox, I guess, worked to help port that game in some capacity, probably just with funding, and that's the reason it's not on PlayStation. Again, a very odd situation there, but I wouldn't be shocked if maybe when we get closer and get that release date as part of an Xbox Wire post, oh yeah, also it's going into Game Pass, but I guess we'll see as we get into 2024. Oh, and we did get that PlayStation Plus Essential announcement, and it's basically what we expected, plus one additional game, which we can see this card here, post up over on PlayStation Blog, with Callisto Protocol, Farming Simulator 22, and Weird West. I have not played Weird West. I believe that one is in Game Pass, but it just wasn't one that I was necessarily drawn to. So I guess let us know in the comments if it's any good, if it's worth checking out. I think the Callisto Protocol is, especially if you kind of like that the Dead Space horror type game, just in space in general. I mean, it's very isolated kind of game, but I think visually speaking, it's very impressive, and kind of the melee combat is a bit different than you would expect, but also experience in other games. These will all be available October 3rd, but again, don't forget, you're going to want to claim the current games with Saints Row. I mean, you can't miss out on that one. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a major shakeup at Sony. And this was announced last night, and it caught the internet completely off guard. No one expected Sony to announce that Jim Ryan was actually stepping down at Sony as a CEO and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, PlayStation, and would actually be retiring from the company next year. This was an entire press release that was put out by Sony, and also kind of outlined their path forward when it comes to the leadership and just overall management structure. We can see this though posted up over on Sony's website, where they say Sony Group Corporation and Sony Interactive Entertainment today announced that SIE President and CEO Jim Ryan has made the decision to retire in March 2024 after almost 30 years with the PlayStation business. To support Mr. Ryan in his transition, Sony Group Corporation President, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki will assume the role of chairman of SIE effective October 2023. So just in a couple of days. And then effective April 1st, 2024, Mr. Totoki will be appointed interim CEO of SIE while he continues his role at Sony Group Corporation. Mr. Toki will work closely with Sony Group Corporation Chairman and CEO Kenichiro Yoshida and the management team of SIE to help define the next chapter of PlayStation's future, including the succession of the SIE CEO role. Now we do have a statement here from Jim Ryan saying, after 30 years, I have made the decision to retire from SIE in March 2024. I've relished the opportunity to have a job I love in a very special company, working with great people and incredible partners, but I found it increasingly difficult to reconcile living in Europe and working in North America. I will leave having been privileged to work on products that have touched millions of lives across the world. PlayStation will always be part of my life, and I feel more optimistic than ever about the future of SIE. I want to thank Yoshida-san for placing so much trust in me and being an incredibly sensitive and supportive leader. So the big thing here that I feel like more people obviously took notice Jim Ryan when he just took over for PlayStation at the top, right? 4.5 years ago? But he's basically been there since the PlayStation, the PS1, came out in 1994. And as you have kind of taken away from his statement, spent a lot of his time just in Europe. In fact, he was basically in charge and worked to help turn around the PS3 after it stumbled out of the gate, and really worked to restore the PlayStation prominence in Europe. So naturally, after seeing that, he just kind of worked his way up to being president and CEO of PlayStation, and they trusted him with the launch of the PS5 during a pandemic, which not an easy situation there at all, but he managed to pull it off. And I think the biggest thing here with Jim Ryan, something he's clearly struggled with since he took over and was head of the company there, was just communication and being personable with the fan base or the user base for PlayStation. Not really good at that at all, and most people look at him and say, okay, this is the guy who's raising prices, who's introducing these live service games, and just holds the controller really funny. But we've talked about Jim Ryan being a numbers guy and business first, and in that capacity, technically, yes, he's done a pretty good job considering the PS5 is now caught up to the PS4 and will most likely succeed it and pass the lifetime numbers that they posted during that generation. But I am very curious where they kind of go from here, considering Jim Ryan did talk about one of the big reasons that he's retiring outside of just, he's getting up there in age, where he's like 54, 55, and he's been there for 30 years. The idea of living in Europe, but then also working in America. And a lot of that's because PlayStation has obviously over the past decade plus been more and more drawn to the US and the Western audience, to the point where they're basically moved completely. So I assume the next person to take over will just be based out of the US. And it seems like probably 6 or 7 months from October, we'll find out a bit more about maybe their plans going forward as to who they will appoint. But very, very interesting times ahead for Sony. And again, I know that there's a lot of celebrating going on right now from what I've seen online about Jim Ryan basically leaving Sony. But a lot of the stuff he greenlit, you're actually not going to see for a couple of years. So keep that in mind. There's a chance that the next person takes over, these games start coming out, people are really happy with what they're seeing, and really what they're seeing are games that Jim Ryan helped to organize and put together. Remember, some of these projects, 6, even 7 years, not exactly uncommon. Oh, and I figure I'll add this for Jim Ryan's sake. Steven Totillo did share this over on Twitter at the bottom of a thread where he kind of went over some of the different things that Jim Ryan had done in his time leading PlayStation. And he said, and for the record, he told me in 2021, they didn't actually dislike old games. So there you go. That was a quote, of course, that he had looking at Gran Turismo. Who wants to play this? he actually does like old games. At least that's what he told Steven Totillo at one point. Next up, let's talk about a complete edition that we were expecting to come out for the PlayStation 5, and that's for Horizon Forbidden West, as well as the PC port of the game. This was announced over on PlayStation Blog, and we can see it posted up here, with the release date of October 6th, so not too far off, like a week and a half or so. But if we take a look, this is what the bundle will include, also coming in at $60. So they're not looking for that full $70 on it necessarily. But of course, it comes with Horizon Forbidden West, as well as the Burning Shores DLC, which I did enjoy that DLC, and I think the final boss is kind of eye-opening for the future of Horizon, as of course we are expecting another like full-on release for that game. If you finished Forbidden West, you know exactly what I'm talking about there, but definitely check out the DLC if you have not. They also have the digital soundtrack, the art book, and a bunch of things for in-game items and different in-game items that are unlocked via story progression. But the big thing that caught everyone's attention is that, yes, there is a PC port coming. It's coming early 2024, and this is being done in partnership with Nix's Software. Remember, that being the studio that Sony had acquired a little while ago, but has done a lot of work with these different PC ports. And for the most part, all the different ports that Nix's has a hand in come out with pretty good quality or above average quality when it comes to the different features. The Last of Us Part 1 didn't really come out great, but that was more Naughty Dog and what Iron Galaxy, I feel like. In this case, though, Nix's has done pretty good for each release they've at least worked on. So I'm expecting kind of the same here with Forbidden West. My only question, though, with Sony is, where's Ghost of Tsushima? I thought that might be next. This one, I guess it's not that much later necessarily. Early 2024, that would put it 2 years after Forbidden West came out. So still kind of that 2-year buffer. Although I do think that window is going to continue shrinking down more and more, as we are seeing with live service games. It just doesn't exist at all. But I figured Ghost of Tsushima, like, that's one I would love to see on PC, because the game itself, open world titles in general, seem to get the biggest boost going over to PC, obviously because open world games tend to be much more taxing on the hardware. But that game looks really good still, and then you also bring it over to PC with these ultra widescreen monitors, high resolution, high settings, the whole thing. That could be a really, really compelling game to see benchmarked and of course just in motion. Then you also add in the multiplayer, and there's just a lot of stuff going on there for Sucker Punch, so maybe that's next? I don't know. I figured we would have had it by now, and we're still waiting. But hey, we have Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition coming up at the start of October, and then look to 2024, specifically early 2024 for that PC port. Next up, let's talk about Valve just launching the sequel to the most popular game on Steam, and that's Counter-Strike. Now, they have been running like these private beta tests for it from time to time, so it's not like it was a secret necessarily that it was in development. They've even talked about it before, but I wasn't really expecting it necessarily just launch and like, oh yeah, it's out. You just go upgrade CSGO and check out the new Counter-Strike title that we've released. It is, again, the biggest game on Steam. If you look in current player count, 9 times out of 10, it's at the top. But we can see this posted up over on Steam's website, introducing the release for Counter-Strike 2, where they say, come take a look around. Counter-Strike 2 is the largest technical leap forward in Counter-Strike's history. If you're a returning player, you'll find your favorite maps and matchmaking modes right where you left them, along with the revamped Premier mode, where you can establish your all-new CS rating, rise through the ranks, see where you stand on global and regional leaderboards. They also mentioned for new players, because I'm sure this is going to draw in even more people, which sounds crazy because I'll look at concurrent player counts and Counter-Strike is generally above 1 million players, like at all times it seems. But they say you can learn the basics with some offline training, jump into casual and deathmatch to hone your skills. And this is a game where, yeah, if you're jumping in the first time, you might want to put the training wheels on and do that, because you're gonna get lit up pretty quick in any mode where people are even somewhat familiar with the title. But we also have The Verge, who talks a bit about some of the upgrades that they have, saying the game is based on Valve's Source 2 engine, giving the game a much-needed facelift, reworked audio, UI enhancements, and upgraded community workshop tools. I remember it was being shown with like the smoke grenades and it being able to like have smoke kind of just bunch up into different doorways and all. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff they're doing here with the engine specifically, but Again, it's a lot of excitement around the most popular game on Steam, and I remember playing Counter-Strike like when Steam first came out, was first a launch or a thing alongside like Half-Life and stuff, and it was known as the Half-Life mod. I had checked it out then. I was played a little bit on the original Xbox, but kind of moved on after that. And again, I know CS:GO is very, very popular, so I don't know. It's free to play. Maybe I'll download it, check it out, especially with the new engine, and be like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then move on after I get killed over and over again in different matches. But for Counter-Strike fans, you probably already know about it. If you've been curious though, hey, it's free to play. Why not give it a shot on your PC, considering these games are also, specifically like CS:GO and stuff, are pretty easy to run. There's a good chance your computer should be able to handle it, even at like decent settings and a okay resolution. And in our last bit of news, we have a bit of an update around Sonic Superstars. That, of course, coming up October 17th. So a little over 3 weeks now for all you Sonic fans to get what looks like, I think, a really, really cool 2D Sonic game. But there, of course, are always questions about the Switch version. I mean, it's not exactly like new hardware or anything, but we did at least get an answer around the frame rate for this title, since in a lot of games, we see the frame rate just completely halved in order to just make it function on the platform. We can see this posted up though over on Noisy Pixel, citing actually a translated comments from Ryuji. And this was in an interview with the Sonic Superstars development producer and character designer and Denfamnico Gamer. The question, though, was, could you give a message to our readers who are looking forward to the release of Sonic Superstars? They say, thanks to everyone who has supported Sonic, I am once again able to be involved in development. Sonic Superstars will be released on all kinds of platforms, so please try it out, and you will be able to play it at a smooth 60 FPS, even on Nintendo Switch. I hope old fans will be nostalgic for the characters, and newcomers will be able to experience Sonic's speed. I say smooth 60 FPS, I'm sure we'll see about that one. Digital Foundry, I'm sure we'll test that theory, but it is good to see that it's what you would hope for a fast-paced 2D Sonic game, and that's just 60 frames per second across the board. I feel like with like the PS5 and the Xbox Series and PC and stuff, you would shoot even higher than that, 120 frames, but again, the Switch seems to always be the question mark with that 2015 X1 at the heart of it. But good to hear that it will be 60 frames. I assume the resolution will probably be lowered down to make that possible. However, the game itself in handheld mode at that frame rate should look pretty good. So I am looking forward to Sonic Superstars. Fortunately, we'll get a couple of days out of it before we hit the big double release with Mario Bros. Wonder and Spider-Man 2, but that's October for you. It's just absolutely packed. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will there be another Sony State of Play before the end of 2023? Wow, 67% say no, 33% say yes. So it's interesting because there's an image that's going around from Hideo Kojima that has people thinking that, okay, he accidentally leaked a Sony State of Play. I did a whole video on this on the second channel, so check it out. But it wouldn't shock me if there was a State of Play still to come before the end of this year. It could legitimately be one that's just for Death Stranding 2, but it could also be one from Sony working to just set up 2024 as they're trying to clear the way right now for Spider-Man 2, as that is the big game they're relying on to push PlayStation 5s out the door for the holiday season, because they have very lofty goals, and I don't think they want to drown out maybe Spider-Man 2, if that's even possible, as it's going to be very popular. But you start throwing around 4 or 5 big first-party games from Sony, maybe new intellectual properties thrown in there, some sequels, and, you know, some attention gets pulled away. Let's get Spider-Man 2 out there, and then maybe November or even December, we have some sort of Sony event to kind of paint the picture for phase 2, I'd say, of the PlayStation 5 generation. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Sakura, who says, $80 and broken at launch. Sounds like a good reason to stop buying games before a price drop. Yeah, I had brought that up, the possibility of games going up in price again before the end of this generation to $80. And you're right, though, games have been coming out more and more recently, just broken at launch. I'm thinking of like Jedi Survivor as an example of a single player game that just was not great in terms of its quality, and it took them a while to get it to the point where it is now. But even we've been dealing with Payday 3. I know that's a $40 game at launch. However, they did sell an $80, I think, version that was done pre-release to give you the game on the actual release day, you know, days early. But that game just hasn't been working at all. It's been a really, really bad launch. And the fact that we've seen these pile up, yeah, it's going to waver confidence completely for consumers, and they'll just hang out and wait. If a person bought Jedi Survivor right now on sale for $30 or $40, they indeed will get a better experience than I did, paying $70 on day one with the full playthrough. And that's kind of frustrating, right? So yeah, I get it why people are looking at this and go, oh, now we're going to $80. Well, I'm going to wait and make sure this game actually works right out of the gate. And if not, I'll be back in a year or two when it's on sale. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whereas Jim Ryan stepping down, actually retiring in 2024. Who do you think Sony finds to replace him, and what kind of changes do you think will happen over the next year or two after he's gone? And then also, what about Horizon Forbidden West making its way to PC next year? Are you going to pick it up? And then Counter-Strike 2 just randomly out. Are you playing it? What do you think of it so far? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.